Hi everybody, so we are going to start our new project today, and that is going to be based on masks from around the globe. We're going to focus mainly on West African masks. So masks play a part in almost every culture on the planet. And throughout history, masks have had many different uses. How many different uses can you think of? Many religions around the world have used masks, sometimes to hide the identity of the wearer, and at other times to make people fear or respect the wearer. And here are some examples below. Religious masks from Nepal, about 100 years old, and some ancient Aztec masks that are about 2,500 years old. Religious masks can take many different shapes and designs. So this one on the left is from Africa and is about 100 years old, and the one on the right from Alaska, about 200 years old, and looks like it might have caught a fish. In many countries, masks play an important role in ceremonies and festivals. So here's quite a scary mask from Switzerland and an Indonesian dance mask on the right-hand side. And here's a scary mask that resembles a dragon, which is from Tibet and is a festival mask that's about 100 years old. We've also got a festival mask from India on the left and a costume ball mask from Italy on the right, with lots of feathers and plumage. A Mardi Gras mask that resembles the devil on the left from Mexico, and another example on the right there. Perhaps when you design your mask, your tongue might be sticking out, or you might have big teeth or horns. Masks have been used in theatre all around the world, and some are very simple and others are extremely complex. So you can see the angry face on the left has been made from crushed oyster shells, and the bull on the right has a function where it can blow steam out of its nostrils, making it look more theatrical and more aggressive. Think about how the masks display different emotions, from the positioning of the eyebrows, from the opening of the eye, and from the direction of the smile. So masks have also been used in war, and they were often used to protect the wearer, so to protect one's head or face, but also they were made to look quite scary, to strike fear into the enemy. So we're going to look at West African masks, but you might be from somewhere else in the world, and our school is very multicultural, which I love about the school. And so if when you design your mask, you want to draw inspiration from your heritage or your culture, then you absolutely can do that. So here are some West African masks that have been carved from wood. And this is West Africa circled on the left-hand side here. So in West Africa, the masks are seen as objects of power, so very, very powerful objects. They're also thought to keep ancient stories alive, because during ceremonies and festivals, they would celebrate ancient times. They were also thought to connect the people to the heaven, as when a very important person wore a mask, they believed that they would be possessed by their ancestors in the heavens, or possessed by gods. So they were thought to communicate with the spirit world. They believed that when you put a mask on, you became possessed by a god or an ancestor, and the mask would give you energy, and that's why they would start to dance in really energetic ways. And I'll post some videos so you can see examples of this. And they describe the energy and the life force between us as nyama. So an African mask is not a disguise used to hide yourself or hide your identity in West African belief. A masked person is not a man pretending to be a god, but actually they believe a god who becomes visible through the mask during ceremonies and rituals. So this is just another way to describe that when the African tribespeople put the masks on, they believe that actually they become possessed by a god or perhaps one of their ancestors. So masks are incredibly important in their culture. So here are some examples, somebody dancing with great energy, nyama on the left, and some huge masks on the right that have been carved from wood. And they often, these aren't West African, these are Far Eastern masks. But if you have a look at these masks and think about their emotion, at first you might think that they have the same emotion, but actually if you look closely, the one on the left looks perhaps a bit sad, maybe pensive, which means think in thought, and the one on the right looks happy and content. So perhaps you will put emotion into the mask that you design this term. They also use very bold patterns that they carve into the wood, and they use pigments which are colour that they extract from different coloured vegetables that they then paint onto the wood. So they only use materials that they can find in their environment. So are they 2D or 3D? Well, hopefully you're thinking they're 3D, Miss Beer. And if you think that, then you are absolutely right. They're full of different shapes, often quite geometric shapes. And geometric shapes are math shapes. So circles, triangles, squares, diamonds, rectangles. I hope you can see all of those within these masks. And yes, they are described as geometric shapes. So if you were to fold these masks in half along the center point, would they be the same on both sides? And what is that called? And hopefully you've remembered that we call that symmetrical. So when you design your mask, hopefully you'll include some geometric shapes and you'll try and make your mask symmetrical. So as I mentioned earlier, the West Africans used materials that they could find in their environment. So you imagine if there was a tribe positioned by the ocean, they might use shells, pebbles and sand, or maybe dried seaweed because this is available to them. Most masks were carved from trees, so they'd cut a tree down, take a segment of wood and carve into it using spiritual tools, carving tools that they believe were very special. They might also use dried straw or fabrics. They often decorated them with animal bones or skins and vegetable fibres, and they also sometimes use metals such as bronze, copper and brass. Some lovely examples there, so have a look at those, see if they give you some inspiration. And they were also inspired often by animals, and animals are very, very special to the West African people. Animals are needed for the West African people to survive, for them to eat, and for the life cycle and the food chain. And so they like to look after them and they like to celebrate them, and so they often created masks inspired by them. So you can see the one on the left is perhaps an elephant. We've also got some zebras, maybe a leopard, and another elephant in the bottom there. And these are some examples of African animals, and I'm sure those of you who are from Africa or who have maybe travelled there know just how beautiful and varied the animals are in Africa. So here you can see very clearly that this bovine or cow species has been used to inspire this mask here. So perhaps you'll use an animal to inspire your design. They like to abstract them, and abstracting something often means taking things away and simplifying it. So if you look at the buffalo image here and then look at the mask, you can see that they have copied the shapes of the buffalo's face and horns, but then they've used geometric shapes and they've simplified its facial features. Here we have an owl, an upside down owl, which is quite fun. An elephant, and often the West Africans liked to explore the relationship between man and animals, and by to do this they would combine animal and human features. So you can see here there's the ears and the trunk of the elephant, but then it's got a human nose and a human mouth. So maybe you might use that in your design and you might combine your human features with animal features. That would be cool. An African hunting dog there. So now I want you to think about how you would design a mask that represents you. And again, it doesn't need to be inspired by West Africa. It could be inspired by your heritage or something in your life that's important. And through the next few weeks, we're going to have a go at drawing masks. We're going to explore masks in more detail. And then we're going to start designing our own masks. And when we get back to school, we will be making them. And you will be learning an African chant and an African dance, and we will be doing a performance, which will be really, really fun. Okay, let's get on with our first task.